because remember during we were investigating Pizzagate, you had all these crazy articles popping up, and they had no author. They didn't even, but then they got smart after a while and started saying contributed from such and such or anonymous, and then eventually they had to start making up names. But I remember there was a time during the Pizzagate incident where we broke the story on how they were using chatbots to write articles. And then eventually everybody was like, oh, everyone can use the chatbots to write articles now. Even the auto-coders, auto-bloggers, like unbelievable. Like everybody was using auto-bloggers so they could look relevant. But getting back to the point, no, current administration, to the best of my knowledge, isn't doing it. Although today someone told me that they're coming out with a vaccine. I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, there's a patent, apparently. This is what I've heard.
So
I don't have an actual let me finish. Let me finish. There's a patent. There's a patent, apparently, on the vaccine for the coronavirus. I haven't actually seen it, and I don't know if I actually believe that.
See, and that's the thing, is that there is no, listen everyone, I repeat, there will be no vaccine for the virus. Period. And the reason why is because they were unable to create a vaccine for it when it was the regular SARS virus, which stands for sudden arrest respiratory disorder. Right? That's what SARS stands for. And this is SARS number 2 with a whole new turbocharged, crazy, high-tech, no moving parts engine on the inside, right? So, I'm sorry, a little bit levity, right? So that's what we're dealing with here. And if they didn't have, and if you look at it, all they were able to do was contain it, and we still don't know what the actual number of deaths were from that, right? Because I remember, like, there were people in, like, the only way we found out that SARS was even as bad as it was when the cases started popping up of Asian people, specifically Chinese and maybe a few Japanese people, as I remember, getting sick from it in Toronto, Canada. And there was maybe 1 or 2 cases in America. And that's all that made it. But I mean, for all we know, 100,000 people could have died from that, because the way that they responded in some of the later, articles that came out about it directly from China was, I mean, even in people who were acting as mouthpieces for, the different, because remember, America's got its woo-woo / conspiracy theorist community or exopolitical community, right? Every other country does too, but China's is owned by their government, though. That's the crazy part. You know what I mean? Granted, some are owned by the government. Excuse me.
You'll be able to answer this, because I know we touched on this briefly, you and I personally, when we talked before. The Metro CO UK publication is saying that the coronavirus has an HIV-like mutation. And
it has 2... Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And you were mentioning that it had an HPV human. Is it human? Or
yeah, it has a component of from what I understand, just based on like the general statements. And I don't know why everybody keeps trying to say it's viable on surfaces for 8 days, when I'm like, no, it's viable. It's viable for 8 weeks, because the incubation period is 42 weeks. So what I don't think people still think we're dealing with.
You make that 2 week mark. It doesn't mean that you're totally in the clear, right?
No, like look at everyone else. Like, they're showing you, like, how many days has it been so far? It's been like 60 days.
Wait, let's digress. Let's talk about, is it HIV or is it HPV? Is it herpes?
Well, see, here's the thing: is that HPV is not far from the family of herpes. However,
HIV,
I'll say,
HIV.
It's got 2 contact points for a particular group of genetic sequences that come directly from the HIV virus, right? And then the reason why I'm saying that it has a form of, I said herpes, but let me be a little bit more scientific. It has components of herpes. There's about 27 to 34 different, maybe 36 different herpes simplexes, right, that appear. Chickenpox is one of them. Measles is in the family. Remember now, these are all a carryover from the early days of inoculations / vaccines, right? Go look at the history of vaccines. And when I say the history of vaccines, I mean to go look up who created the first vaccines. And you'll start to see something really bizarre appear, because a lot of that stuff is a carryover. And let me put it to you this way. What the coronavirus did for the herpes simplex and all of them in that family is the same sort of situation. So what we don't really understand is that herpes is not something that just randomly showed up in our environment. It's something that was coached. So it's an early analog man-made virus. And people are like, that's not true. It's like, well, where did it come from? I don't want anybody to listen. I don't want anyone to feel dumb. I don't want you to feel demeaned. What I want you to do is not take my word for it. I want you to go do some research. I don't want you to have confirmation bias. I want you to look up what you're looking for and then look up something that is the complete opposite answer and compare the two and find your own safe space in there and learn something. Like, I don't mind being wrong about things. I do not mind being wrong about things when I'm having an honest conversation and exchange. And I don't like being talked to or talked at. I like being communicated with. But whatever, you take what you get. So what I'm saying is that simplexes have a much longer shelf life outside of a body, up to 8 weeks. And they keep saying, oh, the doctors are finding that it's viable in droplets or water or such and such on the surface for 8 days and outside the body. And I'm just like, listen, if the Spanish flu was good in those carcasses that it was sitting in and up in the frozen territories, right? Then why wouldn't this be good outside? Like, again, people keep thinking this thing is a normal virus, and it is. I'm sorry. People keep thinking this is a normal bioweapon, and it is demonstrating to everybody it's not. Because you know what people say now? Whenever they find a new outbreak area, they're like, hey, let me get that virus so we can, sequence it, because we think because they know it's a different version from the last one. So every time it finds a new host, listen to this, and this is something that they're going to eventually have to emotionally process to say to you folks. They're going to eventually have to emotionally process, and there's a reason why I'm saying emotionally process it, because the staggering realization that because of all the food additives and preservatives, and in particular the most harsh antibiotic, right? The most harsh antibiotic that you can use, which basically allows bacteria, because it's been used, now it allows, because it's in our bodies also, because we were eating the animals that it was in, the cows and the pigs that it was in, specifically the pig products, right? It's going to allow the bacteria to, man, I'm getting droned right now. That's crazy. So it's going to basically allow the bacteria to, basically more easily pass its immunities like no big deal. Like, it's going to basically allow the virus to pass its own immunities. But here's the crazy part is people live in this very strange interpretation of virology where you don't realize that one of the things they don't tell you is that viruses have no problem with passing immunity to other viruses they're not even going to, they're not even associating with. And the same species or genome or class, like, maybe unless they're in different phylums, yeah, they probably won't do it then. But essentially, yeah, they're gonna like, oh, you want some of this? You want some of this? I got some. Here you go. So they do that.
Being proactive is our best bet when dealing with this virus.
So yeah, getting back to that though. So getting back to that portion of it, which is this. Essentially, what we're dealing with here is this. We're getting back to the all four seasons thing, right? So it's no, like honestly, folks, if you're single, and this thing moves out into a very, very sort of strange situation, you'll become a lonely, desperate, horny person, and you may sleep with someone who's infected just out of desperation and loneliness, or need, even worse. Need meaning like, oh, you're hungry, they're taking care of you, you had a hard time, They're going to give you a Holly Berry, what's his name, Billy Bob Thornton moment and make you feel good because you just had a hard experience out there in that cruel world, ravaged by the virus, right?
It's true, though. It's true. It's going to be.
It's true, though. So you need to find a part, like never mind a girlfriend, never mind a boyfriend, never mind a significant other, never mind a wife or a husband. You need to be thinking about a life partner. So if your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whoever they are to you is in your life and you have an intimate relationship with them, or you're planning on having an intimate relationship with somebody, you need to, first of all, do not get involved intimately with anyone who's in either a state of denial or doesn't see what's happening or can't wrap their heads around it, let alone mentally process the reality that something is wrong. They're not being told the truth by the normal channels of authority, right? You need to not mess with that person. And the reason why you need to not mess with that person is because if they don't understand what's happening, they're going to get you killed, or they're going to create a situation where, you have to choose between them and your own life, which is even worse because, in those trying circumstances, it's not going to be good. But my point is, so getting to it is that you have to first keep in mind that whoever you're going to be involved with has to be monogamous, number one, and they have to be as serious about being safe and protected as you are, because if they're not, they're going to get you killed, straight up, no joke.
I can't help thinking. I can't help thinking of Sodom and Gomorrah, or like the Great Plague, or this is like, I don't know.
It is. We all look here. When we found out people were killing themselves with their iPhones, we wished for it. When the Beastie Boys told us what they were doing to the Tibetans, we wished for it. We prayed for it. When we found out about the Uyghurs, we prayed for it. We wished for it. When we found out about the Mongolians, same thing. Now that we found out what's been happening to, then even when we found out about how, women were really getting treated. Even when we found out about all the human trafficking, not just the human trafficking, but the shipping liquefied baby, liquefied fetus, and trying to sneak it into South Korea and coming through the airport in bullets. Yeah, when we found that out, we all prayed for that. Listen, that government has done enough stuff for us to feel like it's okay for us to send our thoughts and prayers to them. Never mind the fact that when we look back at the Great Leap backwards, when we look at Tiananmen Square, there's been a number of things that they have done that have just been like a series of annual, quarter-annual atrocities, and some that are probably monthly and weekly. And when you realize that, you realize it's not just us who prayed for it, it's the people that live there. While we're talking right now, there's a group of senior citizens who had no Wuhan virus in their building that they lived in. It was a luxury condo. Do you hear me? It was a luxury condominium, and some crooked, evil person who was an administrator took advantage of the situation and had a construction company show up and tear the building they were living in down just to steal the land. So you have a lot of people stealing land from old people right now in the middle of the crisis. Getting back to my main point. So it's wintertime. You're going to want to make sure that you get a lot of vitamin D3. You're going to want to make sure you get all your B complexes, like your B16, 13, 14, 17, your 3, your B6, or B3, B6, B2, B1. You're going to want to get you some vitamin C, most certainly.
The immune system, and the thing is
it's not just so let me say this about the immune system situation. Those things are not boosting your immune system in the sense of like, it'll help you make more, white blood cells and or other proteins and peptides that prevent the virus from showing up. What it does is it creates an environment where, in order for the virus to function, it needs to have a certain level of between acidity and base, right? acidity. Okay, it needs between base and acidity.